Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu Coffee Break German.
Welcome back to the Coffee Break German Show. Ich bin Marc.
Ich heiße Thomas.
Wie geht's dir, Thomas?
Sehr gut, Dankeschön. Und dir?
Ja, sehr gut. Ausgezeichnet heute.
Das freut mich. In these weekly episodes, Mark and I talk about different German topics, helping you to improve your German one coffee break at a time.
That's right. And if you're watching our video version, then please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you're listening to the podcast, then make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Also, Thomas, was machen wir heute?
We are talking about separable verbs. When do they separate?
Excellent.
When do they not? What are the different prefixes? Lots to talk about.
Also, los geht's. So, separable verbs sound a little complicated to anyone who's just beginning their German language journey.
Yes, they're kind of, don't think they're unique just to German, but they don't really exist in the same way in English. So they're a little bit hard sometimes to get your head around the concept that a part of the verb just splits off and goes to the end of the sentence. But we'll see what effect it has in an example sentence.
Okay, let's have a look at the example sentence then.
So I've chosen a little bit of a longer one just to show how difficult it sometimes can be to wait for that last prefix. Martin macht jedes Mal, sobald vom Fußballtraining heimkommt, erstmal alle Fenster im ganzen Haus zu oder auf.
Right, okay. So the separable verb in here is zumachen or aufmachen.
Ja, ganz genau.
Zumachen means closes.
Ja.
Aufmachen means to open.
To open, genau.
Yeah, okay. So let's translate the sentence. Martin macht jedes Mal. So Martin, then start off whether he opens or closes.
He does something.
He does something, yeah. Jedes Mal, every time, sobald vom Fußballtraining heimkommt, as soon as he comes home from football training, erstmal alle Fenster im ganzen Haus and then zu oder auf, yeah?
Yeah.
So the erstmal is like as soon as.
Yeah, the first thing he does.
First thing he does, yeah. Alle Fenster im ganzen Haus, all the windows in the whole house, and then, only then, do we find out whether
Exactly.
he opens or closes them.
Yeah, and I think that's sometimes the difficulty because you have that prefix and it can be combined with so many different verbs, but you don't know what the verb of the sentence means until you look to the end of the sentence, which we saw can be after quite a lot of different or other information. So it's good to keep that in mind to check at the end of the sentence, is there a wee prefix hidden? And then what does that verb actually mean? And then you can translate it.
So if we were interpreting this sentence in a situation of simultaneous interpreting, we would have to wait until the very end of the sentence to know exactly what was happening, because the zu machen, it would be macht da-da-da-dam zu, he closes it, or macht da-da-da-dam auf, he opens it.
Which has two very different meanings.
Absolutely. Okay. So in German, we can add prefixes at the beginning of lots of different verbs and lots of different prefixes. Are they always separable?
No, but the handy thing is they come in categories. So some of the prefixes always are separable, meaning they form a separable verb. And some of them, and you've come across them as well, they don't separate. And it actually has quite a lot of consequences how we, for example, form the past participle or what we do if we form like infinitive sentences with zu.
Yeah.
But we'll have a look at that and go through each category one by one.
Okay, so just before we do that, just a reminder that with separable verbs, what happens is we've got an infinitive like aufmachen, to open, and the auf part at the beginning of that infinitive is going to separate from the rest of the infinitive. And in a normal sentence where we're seeing the conjugated verb, we would see the pronoun macht, the conjugated form, then whatever it is he's opening or closing or whatever else he's doing.
Yes.
And then the preposition right at the very end, zu or auf.
Genau. You kind of split the verb up in two and take the preposition, moving it to the very back. So let's have a look at some of the prefixes that form separable ones.
Okay.
There's quite a lot, but I've picked the kind of more common ones.
Okay.
And we have ab, an, auf, aus, ein, mit, nach, vor und zu.
Okay.
Maybe I picked a few too many.
Right. One thing we've deliberately chosen not to do there is translate each of these as we go, because the fact is when they're combined with the verb, they may take on slightly different meanings from what they mean when they exist on their own.
Yeah.
So let's look at some examples. I think that will help.
Gerne. One that you've definitely seen before is ankommen. It's
Ankommen, to
classic
arrive,
example exactly for a separable verb. So you could say, meine Freunde kommen morgen früh an.
So, meine Freunde, my friends, kommen, they come, morgen früh an, towards us, they arrive tomorrow morning.
Genau.
So that's ankommen, full verb, ankommen, but we're separating it into kommen, an in a straightforward sentence.
Yes, and you also see here it's hard to translate the an into a preposition in English because ankommen just means to arrive.
Yeah, okay. Give us another example.
Another one would be nach, the preposition or the prefix, and the verb is nachdenken.
Nachdenken. So nach means when you're going to a place or after a time.
Yeah.
And denken is to think. So what does this exactly mean?
So nachdenken means to think about. And the difference here, if you just denken means to think, but if you're nachdenken, then you're thinking about something.
Okay.
However, it also then uses the preposition über.
Right, so the nachdenken
We have
part.
nachdenken über, to think about.
Okay, so let's see that in an example then.
Okay, we could say, sie denkt oft über die Zukunft nach.
Right, so she thinks often about the future.
Genau, sehr gut.
Okay, good. So that's the present tense. You mentioned that there are some issues sometimes with the other tenses, so when we're forming past participles, for example.
Yeah, very well remembered. Exactly, when we form the past participle, we put the GE that we often use between the prefix and the verb. So, for example, we would have angekommen.
So, angekommen is the past participle of ankommen, where we're taking an, our separable part, sliding it over a little, inserting a ge, and then kommen.
Genau.
Angekommen.
Another example would be, for example, wir haben das Paket abgegeben.
Abgegeben, so we've we've delivered the package.
Genau, so abgeben to hand in order to deliver.
Yeah,
okay, genau.
Good.
There's one more construction where it's important to know if it's separable or not, is if we do infinitive sentences with zu.
Yes.
You know we have the construction zu, or sometimes just zu, and there something similar happens, that the zu just slides in between our prefix and the rest of our verb.
Can you give us an example of that one?
Yeah, we could say, wir warten, uns einen besseren Plan auszudenken.
Right, so ausdenken is like to think up a plan, like a come up with a plan.
Ja, genau, sehr gut.
Okay, so wir warten, we are waiting, uns einen besseren Plan auszudenken. So we're waiting in order to come up with a better plan for us.
Genau, and it's a reflexive verb as well. That's why we have uns ausdenken, so sich ausdenken. But it's auszudenken, so the zu just goes in the middle there.
Just when it's that infinitive structure.
Exactly.
Good. Okay. So you said that those prefixes always form separable verbs. Are there some prefixes which don't form separable verbs?
Yes, never ever. Examples would be be.
Yeah, so be.
Genau, and then emp, so emp.
Yeah.
Ent, ent, and then ver, or zer. So they are ones you've probably seen in different German words. And again, there's a couple more, but the list is too long to include all of them. So they're kind of, I think, the most common ones you would come across.
And we'll see examples of these in our blog article that are that will help you get into this a little more. We'll tell you more about that at the end of this podcast. Give us a couple of examples of these ones which never form separable verbs.
Okay, I've made an example already in the perfect tense to see how that changes things if it's not separable. Hat uns ein gutes Restaurant empfohlen.
So empfehlen is the infinitive of the verb to recommend.
Sehr gut.
So empfohlen, I'm guessing, is the past participle.
Yeah.
So hat uns ein gutes Restaurant empfohlen. He had to us a good restaurant recommended.
Yeah,
recommended a good restaurant. But it's not had, I don't even know how I would say that with
empfohlen.
yeah, empfohlen or anything like that. No, it's just a straightforward empfohlen, one word, no separation.
And it's always the same. So you never find a GE in any of those verbs that have a prefix but don't separate.
Okay.
So neither at the start or in between.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Similar, it changes things when you use that infinitive construction. So in a sentence, dieses Gefühl ist nicht leicht zu beschreiben.
Right. So there's that zu is coming before the infinitive.
Exactly. It's two different words. So we have zu beschreiben.
So dieses Gefühl, this feeling, ist nicht leicht. It's not easy, it's hard.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, genau.
Zu beschreiben, to describe.
Genau, and our verb here is beschreiben, and again, because it had this be, it forms a non-separable, inseparable verb.
Okay, so far we've looked at prefixes which always make the verb separable. We've looked at prefixes which never make the verb separable. Is there another category?
Of course, there has to be the third one, and that's the one that can do both.
It can do both, okay. And can you choose, or does the meaning change?
Yes, the meaning change, or it's more the case that some verbs take that prefix and it's separable.
Yep.
And some verbs take the same prefix, but it's not separable.
Okay.
So there are very few cases where one prefix and the same word can do both.
Right.
So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
For example, we have wieder as the prefix, and we can say wiederholen to repeat something.
Yeah.
Or we could say wiederfinden, which means to find again.
So you said wiederfinden, to find something again.
Genau.
And that one's separable.
Ja, sehr gut.
And then wiederholen is to repeat, but that's not separable.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can give you another example, and maybe you pick something up.
Okay.
So we have übersetzen, which we use a lot.
To translate, yeah.
Genau. And we can also use über to form überkippen, to tip over. So like, for example, if a boat tips over.
Ah, right. Okay. So überkippen.
Überkippen, yeah.
Überkippen. So überkippen. And then the other word was übersetzen.
Genau, to translate.
So übersetzen and wiederholen are not separable.
Sehr gut.
They're just one word that stays the same, yeah?
I can give you an example sentence if you want as well. So we could say, ich übersetze gerne alte Kinderlieder.
I like translating old children's songs.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
And as the über doesn't go to the end, it's just ich übersetze.
Yeah.
However, if you go back to the example with a boat, then I would say, das Boot kippt über.
So the boat tips over.
Yeah, so our über goes to the back here.
Is there something about the stress here? Because I think when you said übersetzen, when it's not separable, the stress was on the setzen part, like where the stress would normally be in.
Yeah, well noticed, yeah.
But when you say überkippen, then you're saying the stress is on the über.
Genau. And it's the same with our wiederfinden.
Yeah.
With the stress is on the wieder, on the prefix. And wiederholen.
Wiederholen.
So it's on the holen. Yeah.
So when the stress is on the prefix, it means it's separable. And when it's not stressed on the prefix, it's stressed on the main part of the verb, it stays together.
Genau.
Okay.
And it's actually the same for the verbs we come across before, but it's not so important there to notice because they always belong to a certain category. But it's ankommen, abfahren, vergessen, or empfehlen, oder zerreißen.
Right. As I said, we're going to see more examples of this in the blog article. But just to summarize what we've looked at today, we've talked about the prefixes that always form separable verbs. So ab, an, auf, aus, ein, mit, nach, vor, zu.
Sehr gut.
And they always form separable verbs. With the separable verbs, we need to remember about the perfect tense, for example, when we've got a past participle, the get slides in between the prefix and the main part of the verb.
The GE, yeah. And the same for the infinitive ones where we put the zu in between.
Auszudenken.
Genau.
And so on. And then we looked at the prefixes that never form separable verbs, and these were be, empf, ent, ver.
Ja, perfekt. Gut
and
gemerkt.
Finally, we looked at a couple of prefixes that can form separable or inseparable verbs. We looked at wieder and über.
Yeah. And
Anything else there?
there's not so many more. Durch would be another one.
Okay.
Right. Or also unter. So
Und.
generally there are a lot less that can do both.
Okay, good. I think we will round things up there.
Gute Idee.
As ever, we hope that you enjoyed this lesson of Coffee Break German.
And as Mark already mentioned, besucht unseren Blog und ihr könnt all die Beispiele dort nachschauen.
Nachschauen? Is that separable or not?
Yeah, it's one of these nach, always separable.
So you can look these up. How would you say look these examples up on the website?
Imperative.
Yeah.
Schaut die Beispiele nach.
Excellent. So yeah, check out the website for all of the examples. And also, if you would like more help with your German and would like to receive weekly email lessons, then just head to coffeebreaklanguages.com/German.
Super Idee.
Ja. Also, das reicht für heute.
Ich glaube auch. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Happy Coffee Breaking.
You have been listening to a Coffee Break Languages production for the Radiolingua Network. Copyright 2024 Radiolingua Limited. Recording copyright 2024 Radiolingua Limited. All rights reserved.